So Lisa is just going to answer the door.
You're gonna hear me yelling at my dogs. They're outside barking. She's so
That's
mean. She's yelling at her dogs.
no, that just has to happen sometimes. So we haven't done a plant-based chat in a while, and we haven't had Lisa on. But I got to see her in person at Chef AJ's
Yes.
thing, and I was so excited. And she sat next to me, and her friend Lauren sat next to me, and I felt super special. But it was really good, and we got to have dinner. And we got to say like almost 15 whole words to each other.
We kept getting interrupted. Hey, I just stepped outside and my glasses went dark, but they'll get lighter as I sit here.
I didn't even notice it till you pointed it out. I'm like, Lisa's like, I'm too cool for what's going on now. Thank you very much.
It was so great to meet you in person and give you a big hug and have a meal together. It was so wonderful.
It was really awesome, and the Sacramento trip was great. We had never been to Sacramento, period, and we went back and ate dinner at that Asian restaurant. Was it vegan pho?
That place was fantastic.
You
I was really
guys.
like blown away. They had that whole oil-free menu. You never see that in an Asian restaurant.
No, and like and it was very, like Asian is the perfect word for it because they had some Thai food and some Filipino food and Americanized Chinese food like you want to have, right? And they had all these good Vietnamese things. So it was really delicious. We went back a second time. Then the next day we ate the first night we were there, we ate at Himalayan, like Momo Himalayan vegan one that's on
Ooh.
Happy Cow. If you guys go on Happy Cow, I put pictures for all the restaurants that I went to. And then the other one was was it vegan? Vegan Himalaya? But if you call 24 hours in advance, they will make you oil-free food. And this one
Wow.
was really cool. So like the Momo one, and I forget how they said it. It was more something Himalayan. The one we went to last was more Tibetan Himalayan.
Ah.
And so I don't know the subtleties of the cuisine, but I do. The first Himalayan restaurant we went to definitely had both Chinese and Indian influences because they had a thali, like an Indian thali,
Oh, I love Tollies.
because you get to taste
Yeah,
everything,
you get all,
right?
it's like a sampler platter, right?
It's awesome. And yeah, and we were so tired from traveling all day, but I thought the conference was really awesome. Lisa,
Oh
and
my
I guess
gosh.
what we should do too is you should introduce yourself. They can see that and I have the WeHeal.health. Let me see if I can change it to your new URL too. But why don't you talk about yourself? Tell them about you and how you're cool and why you're here talking about health instead of cooking today.
You're cool. Um,
I know you're
I'm sorry,
cool.
I'm a little distracted because I hear my dog barking
Do
outside.
you need to go
Um,
check?
yeah, let me just, actually, that's okay, she stopped.
Really? Okay, because it's
She's not
okay.
obeying me. I'm like, what happened? She's like having a bad kid. Um, so hi,
They're not.
everyone. I've met some of you before. My name is Lisa Rice, and I am a nutrition and lifestyle coach and cooking teacher, and I've been doing it for a long time now. Previously, I was a licensed acupuncturist and herbalist, so I have a background in Chinese medicine.
How did I not know that you did acupuncture? I feel like you've been holding out
Yeah,
on me.
yeah. I um, wow, it's all happening here. Here, hang on one second. Hang on.
Okay. See, this is what it's like when you're having like plant-based chats. You're supposed to be hanging out with me and my friends, and here you are. A lot of that hanging out involves.
It's all happening, Kathy. I'm sorry, guys.
Oh no,
Um,
I was just saying it. Like if you were at my house, it would be a lot of let's let the dogs in and out,
the
right?
dogs are going nuts. I don't know why. But I've met some of you before because I've been on there cooking. So I'm still teaching my cooking classes. But oh, we were talking about my background in Chinese medicine.
And I
Um,
didn't know. I think I knew Chinese medicine in general, and I've just changed it. It's kitchen plantastic. Plantastic. I love
You know,
that.
WeHeal's fine too because they link because we're partners. So it's fine if you go to WeHeal, and if you go to Kitchen Plantastic, you'll find WeHeal and vice versa.
Oh, good, good. I just want to make sure because I know you're doing some classes, cooking classes coming up, and I want to make
Yes.
sure everybody knows where to find you.
Oh, thank you, Kathy. Um, yeah, so what was I saying? So yeah, so I have a background. I got into that because I was had a lot of really great results as a patient of acupuncture and Chinese medicine. It helped me overcome some serious back problems I was having at the time. I was working in the music business. I was a publicist. Had a lot of stress.
That's a
Um,
stressful
and
job. Even
yeah.
a book publicist is also a stressful job.
Yes, being a publicist in general, takes a certain personality to do it. And, there were aspects of it I loved, and you can take the girl out of the publicity department, and there's certain skills I still have that serve me to this day. So I got really interested in Chinese medicine when I started studying the philosophy about how the body, everything's interconnected. You can't just like separate one organ or you look at the root of all the problems. It really spoke to me. And I had also gone through, pretty significant health transformation, having already changed my diet to mostly plant-based. I had overcome asthma and cystic acne by cutting out, meat and processed food. Yeah, so I was still very passionate about the diet aspect, really invested in with the patients I was working with. It just came down to that with so many people. Like, there were the people who I helped with pain, that was pretty straight up. It was like sports stuff or whatever. But for most people who were coming in who had like chronic headaches or, just other illnesses, if you looked at their diet, you couldn't help but see there was a connection there. So I was very passionate about that. That's how I got into health coaching and studying nutrition, and eventually started working with Dr. Lederman and Dr. Pulde. We opened the Whole Foods Market Medical and Wellness Center, and then I really got to see it. I mean, that was because, that was our protocol, working with the doctors there and helping the patients through a whole food plant-based diet. And it was amazing. Like, I knew it worked, but like when we were working with type 2 diabetes patients and we watched their A1C drop and they stopped their medication, or like patients would call me up, or I'd get emails like, they're like, could this be true? I got my labs back, and people whose cholesterol had never been under 200 all of a sudden was 60. And, or, lower. And it was just amazing.
That's awesome. And you know that Cheryl had that experience. So when we did the McDougall
Yes.
12-day program, because it's
know.
so funny because I feel like we haven't talked forever because like right after then we missed our monthly kind of chat. But it was 4 days in, she got off of everything but her insulin. And then
Isn't that amazing?
8 days later, she got off her insulin until she had to take a steroid for poison ivy. And so she had to get back on it a little bit. So it wasn't the diet or anything else. It's like she's really allergic to poison ivy too. So she's still kind of, getting everything back into check. But it's surprising. And one of the things that we had just started talking about a little bit before we got on, because we always talk before we come on, is that I had said I was surprised that everybody in the audience was so interested in hearing about the McDougall program, our experience with the starch solution, and you had kind of said why. And I think it's because people hear these miraculous stories, right? And they seem like fairy tales. And like, honestly, I met with Stacy, my support specialist today, and for right now, I'm not having any issues with this, but I'm weighing every day to gather information. So again, for all of you watching this, I'm not saying you should weigh every day, right? So I'm saying this is how I'm gathering information. And so far for me, it's not been a trigger. It's not making me feel weird. And like, I swear sometimes it just feels like I just spun a roulette wheel, because literally I am 3 pounds lighter than I was yesterday. And now you can look back, we ate out twice, so there was more salt in my diet.
Right. That's why it's a slippery slope. Like, when I'm coaching patients, I actually tell them not to weigh themselves every day. You're doing something very specific. But yeah, the fluctuations from day to day can be great because of that, for sure.
Well, and for me, and again, and I think it's a very individual thing. And a lot of times people will ask certain like McDougall things, or I'm on the McDougall program and my weight loss has slowed. And I'm like, okay, these are the things that Stacy would ask you. But, you know, because, and I'm sure you get this all the time too. Oh, so my weight stalled. Well, what are you eating? How much weight have you lost? What health conditions do you have? You know, have to ask all this personal information.
How was your sleep? You know, how is your stress? There's so many factors.
And it's so interesting, but I think what happens is that either some people, and I used to be one of these people, don't want to talk about it. So it's this very private, secret process. And I think sometimes, at least for me before now, it was more about shame. And,
of course, yeah.
And some other, you know, emotional things. And that's why I pretty much tell you guys everything anyhow. So I was like, let's just see how this goes. And we say when we didn't do perfectly in a week, because we don't do perfect. We're trying for 90 to 95% McDougall-ing. Regular McDougall.
And I'm sure everyone here has heard it, but you were going for progress, not perfection, because perfection is death. It's just, you know, it's very, that's what I find is if you're setting yourself up to fail, because the thing is, you have to have the flexibility to allow yourself to have some dips and then go right back to where you want to be. Like, that's okay. You're still succeeding. You know, you're making changes incrementally. You know, some people, I found in the clinic, some people could dive all in 110%. And yes, of course, they saw results. They started the second they got the information, they dove right in. Within weeks, a week, 2 weeks, they had, you know, incredible transformation. But, you know, that was not the norm. It was mostly people who couldn't, they struggled. And I think that's more normal, because you can't set the bar too high. It's like, what can you start with today that's doable? You know, let's change that one meal. Let's start having overnight oats or scrambled tofu for breakfast every day for a while, or every other day, or however it works. You know, everybody's life is different. Everyone's situation's different. Everyone's you know, struggling with different things in their lives. So it really is based on the individual, and you can have great results by making small changes.
And I love that. And I just want to pull that out to everyone, is that because I definitely have a personality that tends to all or nothing and just stressing myself out. Because I always say I have the worst boss anyone could ever have. Because I'm like, who scheduled this weekend after I got back?
You made me laugh so hard when you said that to me.
Right? And it's my fault, because I tend to, when I'm really busy or in a busy season, I chunk things up. So I think, what do I absolutely have to do for this week? And then I come back and I'm like, okay, now what? Oh my God, right? How am I going to do that? But I think just the little thing, the one consistent that helps me, like what Lisa was saying, because she does overnight oats. Now Cheryl is trained and she makes our slow cooker oats every night.
Great.
And if we don't eat them, I put them in Ninja Creamy Pints and make ice cream out of them. So there's not a loss.
That sounds great.
Right, and I just add you can do a sweetener of your choice. It could be maple syrup. A liquid sweetener.
Are you using steel cut oats for that?
We are using steel cut oats. I did realize, because I was overly tired the other night, ran into Walmart and I'm like, oh look, there's great value steel cut oats. Well, they're quick cut steel cut oats, and in looking at them, it's fine. And maybe let's get your opinion on this too, because I'm very opinionated about oats. And my opinion is they're all good and delicious.
Absolutely.
So,
but they're going to cook differently in the slow cooker. Like, I would think, how do the quick steel cut oats come out in the slow cooker?
It's creamy. So when I open the box and put it in I should show you. I have a big mummy jar. I got mummy jars for the kitchen.
Let me see.
You want to see? Okay, I have some baby ones if I can't reach the big one. Oh, Cheryl's reaching it for me. Because I have this guy, and then I have a bigger one that we have brown rice in. Is he
Oh,
not
cute.
the
Oh,
cutest?
I love those.
And so, the really what these quick steel cut oats are actually Scottish oats, which means I don't know if they do it after it's an oat groat or after they cut it a couple times with this steel, but then it gets between those stone ground. You've heard stone ground grits, stone ground flour. It's just stone ground steel cut oats. So it was really creamy.
Yum. You're making me hungry right now.
I'm hungry too. Um, and trying a few different ones, the only thing I would say is rolled oats are the cheapest. And they're really easy to do as overnight oats. You can do several days in advance. So I do like, Cheryl does
Yeah.
not like overnight oats, so I've just kind of gotten out of the habit. But like, I like to put blackberries and blueberries.
Same. Yeah. Well, the reason I asked about the oats is that when you were talking about sort of batch cooking, that if you don't eat them right away, you can do other things with them. I'm a big fan of portioning them out and putting them in the freezer, like brown rice. But I haven't done that with steel cut oats. But I imagine that would work just like any other grain. Like rice freezes well, beans freeze well, right?
Oh, absolutely. And so I always say, when you're walking through Trader Joe's and you're like, I wish that was oil free or I wish that was vegan, anything you see you can make and freeze.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Like I'm trying to think if there's anything that doesn't freeze well.
Like pasta can be a little bit iffy. You have to, like, you're going to
Pasta.
do pasta with sauce. There's a
Or
very
things like
particular one.
enchiladas, will get mushy, right? Because the corn tortillas and everything, they can get mushy.
They can, but I don't mind them, and
I don't
I'm
mind it either.
lazy, so I make the casserole instead of rolling up,
Same here.
and I'm like, you're good. But like what I'll do
It's so much
sometimes with,
easier.
yeah, and I think that's part of it too. It's like, if you enjoy making some things like it's a hobby, because there's some things I've made tofu, I've made tempeh. Do I do it every week? Of course not. It wouldn't be
Right,
fun
right.
then.
Yeah.
But everything doesn't have to be a croquembouche, is what I always say. And so that's like the little cream puffs made into a Christmas tree with spun sugar around it. It just makes me need a nap just thinking about that it exists.
Oh, totally. I mean, and that's one of the things I learned because I love to cook. You love to cook. I've been doing it a long time. I always have the ingredients. I know what I want to make. I don't have to look at recipes. It's just part of my being. I love looking at recipes, but not, that's not everyone. And so when I first started teaching the classes at the Whole Foods Medical and Wellness Center, I came in like, I can't wait to share my, vegan cheese recipes and my, pizza dough from scratch and all that. And it was like, wah, wah, because most of the people there really, they're like, they work like 50, 60 hours a week, and they're just trying to figure out, they've got kids at home, they've got all kinds of things going on, and I had to really dial it way down. And that's when I really got into, I had to think about like, how do I throw a quick meal together? What do I eat? How do I do it? And then I also learned to really embrace frozen food, because frozen food can be fabulous. And I'm not talking about the pre-made, frozen pizzas or whatever you buy. I'm talking about like batch cooking food and freezing it, or frozen fruits and vegetables, especially frozen berries. Oh my gosh, I couldn't live without frozen berries and cherries, right? And corn and peas, and even like I love they Trader Joe's, and also I think Whole Foods has like the roasted peppers and onions, and there's certain things that if you have them, you can just throw a meal together and you don't have to spend an hour in the kitchen. You can spend less than 30 minutes, sometimes 10 minutes, and so I really learned to create recipes and teach classes that really supported people in doing that, because I just saw such a need for it and realized not everyone's going to get into cooking the complicated stuff, they don't have time.
And I agree too, because like there's times, and some of the things that I don't think are complicated, other people are, when you're new to it, it's complicated. Like,
Absolutely.
I love Indian food. Like, to me,
Yes.
you get so much flavor for your buck. It's inexpensive. You can make a big pot of yellow dal, which can like soothe your worst day ever.
Oh my gosh. That's easy actually. The doll is pretty easy. I'd say
It
out of everything.
and it is, and some of it. That's why I'm big on making some spice blends and talking about some stuff like that. Because sometimes you can just have a baked potato or mashed potatoes or grains or whatever, and then you can have steamed vegetables or some beans. And if you have a little sauce, and that sauce could be California balsamic or just balsamic, or it could be
Yes.
an oat queso that I make in the blender, something that you just throw some crap in the blender and you blend it up and like, how did I get cheese out of that, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I think that's really interesting. And I think that people with cooking and I think with diet, and I'm noticing this more now that I'm being, real out and proud about my McDougalling. And it's not that I picked McDougall because I think the other doctors are wrong. I picked McDougall because it's the easiest. And the 12-day
Yeah.
program is really supported. So like I had 4 doctor visits with Dr. Lim. We had 12 days of like intensive programming. You had a support specialist every day, then for 8 weeks, a support specialist every week, and then you have one for every month for a whole year. So it's a very supported program. And if you're not doing the maximum weight loss, it's pretty much just whole food, plant-based, no oil. Now,
Yeah.
depending on what your goals are. My goal was and still is to lose weight, which is a weird goal to talk about because I don't have I'm trying to get down to this fantastic number. I don't know. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I did meet my first goal, which was my liver numbers came back normal for the first time in years.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Right? So the reason
Yeah.
I did it is I have fatty liver and basically, and I have some fibrosis as well, and there's no pill to take. You just keep going and either you fix it a little bit if you can, or you get a liver transplant. So, yeah, and they don't tell you that. They just go, oh, I'm a little worried that you have a fatty liver. Like my doctor never.
I love that you just said that because I'm sure you've seen Dr. Esselstyn say some people think eating a plant-based diet is radical, but I would say, cutting open your leg and removing the artery to replace breaking open your chest and putting it in your chest is pretty radical. Hang on, my dog is barking. I'm going to let her
Oh,
out.
no problem. I'll read a couple of comments while we're going, and then actually I'll see if I can. I'll just go to me, and you're seeing more than you were wanting to, and I'm going to see if I can change this camera really quick to Lisa. Here we go. Okay, so early on I was switching to you because you were talking, and basically it just switched to me.
Oh, well, and then everyone can admire your cute bangs and your hair.
Oh, you're
I
so
love your.
We literally were talking about how, I think she's gorgeous. So anyhow,
Aw,
but so
you're
Kathy
gorgeous.
was, oh, you're gorgeous. Do you guys want to hang out with us now, or are you like, I can't do this?
I couldn't stop hugging you when we finally did.
Me either. I was like, this woman's going to be like, can you please get off me for a second? And I was like, no. It's so cool though, now versus I don't know, 20 years ago, that we could just meet online like this and then end up being so happy being friends. I just think it's so cool.
I know. It's amazing. I'm so grateful.
And you were talking about Dr. Esselstyn, basically, I always say, yeah, open heart surgery is not that radical compared to changing your diet to some people. And I think the interest is that some people keep it secret, and then some people, as you're doing it, it kind of becomes your own experience a little bit too. So
Yeah.
as Chef AJ started off doing Dr. McDougall and then kind of ended up doing her own thing because bodies are different, right? And you may be able to eat a handful of nuts a day, and maybe one day I will, but today is not that day. And just kind of figuring
Well, I think
out.
that's important. Yeah, I mean, I think all of us who are helping others with this way of living have come to it from different paths, for
For
sure,
sure,
like what
like
you're
what you're
saying.
saying.
And I
I
think
think,
that's
I think,
important to
I
remember
think, I
because
think.
we've all had different experiences with it. And so you're right, Chef AJ is teaching a little bit differently than Dr. McDougall because she had a different experience, you know. Actually, and I think you know this from your interview with them, Dr. Lederman and Dr. Pulde, who I work with from Forks Over Knives, Dr. McDougall is one of their mentors. They were physicians, and when they spent 10 days trailing Dr. McDougall in one of his programs and saw the change that people were experiencing in just that 10 days, they were convinced. They had already been interested in bringing a whole food plant-based diet into their practice, but it was Dr. McDougall that really cemented that for them.
Well, there's something crazy too. Like when you see, so we were in a fairly large cohort, and some of the people talked a lot and some people didn't, just like all online programs. But to see the differences that did seem to happen so quickly, and I think one of the good reasons of being in a program or having your own health coach is having that accountability and having to show up at least for a period of time. And so I loved having 12 days, and actually Cheryl got kind of pulled into it because Cheryl was more scared when I got my liver biopsy than I was. I made friends with everyone. I got awarded best patient of the day. I was given recipes out, you know, so I mean, because I just kind of go in and like, if we're all happy, I'm going to have the best outcome. So
Yeah,
it is
yeah.
somewhat of a safety mechanism, but I'm like, you know, I do the same thing with cash. I'm the person who's in front of you that you wish would stop saying nice things to the cashier so you could go ahead and go. That's me. But
Oh, you're my soul sister.
right? Because people have hard jobs and hard
Yeah.
days. And if I'm not able to every single time, but when I am, I want to let people know that I appreciate them. But so while I'm just living my best life, because I had never had the thing they gave you to put in your arm, and I was like, oh, we should have a champagne because I'm having my first whatever. And she just was so amused by me. And Cheryl's out there with our friend who's a nurse, freaking out, right?
Oh, wow.
So she's had fairly significant type 2 diabetes for several years. And so I've tried to get her to do things. I think that's one of the things that's interesting about our story to people as well, because she was the reluctant spouse who turned it around. But, and so I was like, well, look, you were scared. So, because I was going to pay for her to do the 12-day program with me. And she was like, no, that's a waste of money, da, 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 da. And I'm like, okay, but if you would like to stay married, then you're going to do it all with me.
Ooh, the ultimatum.
Well, it was like the big ultimatum. And I was like, because I'm like, I'm mad that I have to get better and you're not having to get better, was a little bit of it. But like, so she
So
sat with me.
you would say that it was your diagnosis that really was like a motivating factor.
Yes, for me.
That's
And
important for people to know.
oh, thank you for pointing that out. And
Well, because what I do when I'm working with clients in coaching, we dig deeper, and it's like, well, let's talk about that. Like, and we talk about what life would look like without addressing that health issue, right? And then what life would look like if you did, you know, and the difference in what your life could be versus what, you know, the two different pictures we paint, right?
oh, I
Because if
love
you don't
that.
have, yeah, and it doesn't have to be a serious diagnosis. You have to have a good reason. You have to have a really strong why to make any kind of change, whether it's a whole food plant-based diet or changing your job, right? So that's really important to think about what's important to you, what values, what needs will be met by making these changes. So I just wanted to acknowledge that because that was a strong motivator for you.
I love that. And we had lost weight in 2019. We were, I don't know if you know Howard Jacobson and Josh LaJohny, but we were doing some work with
Oh,
them.
yes.
They're lovely. They're friends. And with the pandemic, I put on 30 pounds. So we were doing okay. And we even did okay to a few months into the pandemic, but then it just broke me. But also during that time, I had a bad doctor. Well, not a bad doctor. She changed. So she was a normal, great GP with an open mind who did acupuncture, who then kind of went to paleo CrossFit and longevity practice. So it's not that we just weren't a match. And I was on some supplements that weren't working for me. Then finally I said, yeah, I need to go back. Because she was like, Cheryl needs to go back and do what she did. And I said, yeah, I'm going to do what I did. I'm going to walk 3 miles again. She's like, no, I want you to do Tabata 4 times a day and do these exercises. And I said, and I'm going to start eating oatmeal in the morning. Oatmeal? It's not the oatmeal as much as what you might put on it, like fruit. And I'm like, and so finally it was just done. It was done. And so with that process too, it was very interesting.
Well, those diets like paleo and keto are very attractive because you can lose weight very quickly. They're just not sustainable, and long term they're not, good for your health.
Well, and I think it's one thing, so she's competing now as a CrossFit athlete. And there's another friend of mine who is vegan, who is a patient of hers, who never got the same stuff because I was fat vegan and she was not a fat vegan. So eating oatmeal in the morning is not an issue because it's not discussed. So, and that makes me feel a little, and literally I would wear a t-shirt that made me look thinner and she would talk to me differently than if not. So it was I don't know what.
Oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I really want to, that's important to me to talk about that because we live in a time where diet culture is just prevalent everywhere and it's not in a healthy way. The images and the expectations, particularly for women. And I think it's important to, what I try to do with my patients or clients who I work with, and I say patients because I'm so used to working with doctors, but is that, again, it's that why and what the health impact is going to be for you. And it's not to say somebody who's morbidly obese shouldn't lose weight, but it's a slippery slope, and I think this is really important because I personally strongly feel that, and I think probably most people do, that we are individuals. We have different body types, different body shapes, different ethnic backgrounds. And we are not all going to fit that ideal that we see around us being thrown at us all the time. And so it's just, I like to tread carefully around the diet and weight loss part of it and really look beneath the hood a little bit deeper because I just want to I want to be part of the change in that perspective, that it's not just about being skinny or looking a certain way, and I think that's really important. It's like, how do you feel? How do you feel physically? How's your energy? How are you emotionally? What's going on with your whole system, your whole body? I have a lot to say about that, and I'm sort of not going to say it right now, but I felt very passionate about it because I just think it's just unrealistic, and it makes people feel ashamed and feel bad about themselves because they think they need to look a certain way to be happy, and it's dangerous.
And I totally agree with you. And so for me to come on here and talk about that I'm actively losing weight, there were a lot of conversations that happened on a lot of different lives that basically saying, I'm not trying to get skinny. I'm not trying to look like a 20-year-old yoga model.
That I know. Yeah, that I know. I've been watching you. I agree, yeah.
But it deserves repeating. And some people do have, and Apple says, I have a lot to say about it too. Go on, Lisa. Apple's awesome. And I think that one of the things that happens is there is this balance. So there are people who, and Katya Gorbachova comes on. She's one of the Plant Strong athletes. So she's a power lifter that lives in town. And she's had body dysmorphia. And so we've had her and I mean, she's like this Amazonian goddess that comes in here.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I'm just like, oh, well, glad I
Yeah.
fixed my bangs. But I think it's not always talked about enough that you can be skinny or fat and have body dysmorphia, and there's all different kinds of things rolled up in that. And I do think, you know, society and a lot of things need to change. There's this wonderful, and I'm going to forget, it's Jessamine Stammes, Apple, I bet you know, the American large yoga teacher. So she is overweight. She talks about it, and she just came out with this bumper sticker that I kind of love. And then I'm kind of get caught back and forth between the plant-based community and the feminist community a little bit. I think we all do, right?
Yeah.
And she said, fat people do great things.
Yeah.
And they do.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that being fat makes you great any more than being skinny makes you great. Some people do great things no matter what their
Well,
body
there's just so
size
much
is.
fat shaming in our society, and it's very sad and I think very wrong, you know. And you know, again, I go back to your health, you know, and for you, you had a very legitimate reason for wanting to lose weight. You had a fatty liver, you had, you know, test results that told you that's what you needed to do, you know. And I think ultimately, you know, I think I told you I wrote a blog post about this that I haven't published yet, because I'm trying to soften it as much as possible. But I have a friend, like, for example, I have a friend, she's tall, she's gorgeous, she's tall, but she's a big woman. She's Samoan, of Samoan descent, and she's healthy, and you know, people love her, but she's constantly on this. She thinks she needs to lose weight, but she's never going to be that skinny model that you see in the magazines because she's just not built like that. And she's gorgeous. She has, you know, high cheekbones and beautiful skin, and she's, you know, she's not overweight. She's just not built like that. You know, I'm not built like that. You know, I have hips, I have thighs, I have, you know, and so. And I come, and I think you do too, from a generation where that was especially, you know, pushed on us. And I think I noticed that I and a lot of my friends, you know, have had to overcome that constant thinking about, you know, our weight and as a aesthetic, you know.
Absolutely. And Cheryl and I think we're talking on Tuesday because, like, Brooke Shields, when she was being a model, oh, okay, it said something muted, but everything's, I think, yep, everything's good. And she was like 12 or 13. So we are 20-year-old women looking at this 12-year-old going, this is
Right.
what our body should be. And that's when the Calvin
Yeah.
Klein models were very androgynous. So
Yeah.
what I find so interesting even now is like, so flat chests are, you know, are in style. Giant chests are in style. And right now we're seeing it accelerate in ways we didn't see it in the 80s and 90s because it took a while to propagate that information out into the world.
Absolutely.
Like the Brazilian butt lifts, right? And so then, see, I consider getting my wisdom teeth out major surgery. So, like, obviously, I'm not a candidate for any of this stuff ever. And I think, you know, I have varying opinions, but I lean towards, you know, I'm 58 and a half. Of course, I have some wrinkles. Of course, this is getting deeper.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that, you know, like.
Yeah, that's another conversation because
Right.
I think I'm the only one of my friends who I'm not getting the Botox. I'm not getting the procedures done, and I just turned 60. But
You are not 60 years old. I thought you were like 10 years younger than me.
No,
Oh my
honey,
God.
I'm 60.
You're
I mean, I'm
gorgeous.
lucky that I have, oh, thank you. I have good skin because, you know, my father had dark skin. But at the same time, I am getting, you know, these frown lines, and I've got the 11s, and when I get together with my friends who we're all in the same sort of age group, yeah, right?
Yeah, the neck.
feel like they all don't have that because they're getting Botox and stuff. And I'm like, oh no, they must think I look really old.
No, you do not look old. And Apple wanted to say, going back to Brooke Shields, and people told Brooke Shields she needed to lose weight when she was doing that. All those celebrity women in like 80s, 90s, and 2000,
There was a lot of anorexia, yeah.
And the thing is I agree with you. So you are taught that this thing is, and what we're seeing too is we're seeing 6 foot tall skinny women, which is a body type. And it's not that it's a right body type or a wrong body type. But if everyone saw me 5'2" with a butt on me, and we're like, oh, I want that. If like my eyebrows are in fashion now. Like all through most of the years, my big eyebrows were not fashionable, and now magically they are. So, and I take real issue with bodies and surgery coming in and out of style. That bothers me, because the thing is my skin is never going to be the color of your skin. Your skin isn't going to be the color of my skin. And why would we want it to be? Like it's just.
Again, it's a slippery slope because, on the one hand, I'm like, women should have the freedom to do the things that make them feel good about themselves. But at the same time, can we take the pressure off a little bit? Because, I have a friend who, she started off with just a little bit here and there, and then she's like full blown, like spends all her money now on procedures for her face. And I personally think it looks a little strange. Like, she doesn't look like herself. But and I think it makes me sad anyway. But I think, like, again, it's a slippery slope.
Well, and I think it's hard too, and I think it is. Once you start putting your focus on something, you're going to see more and more and more. Like right now, I don't care what's covering the dining room table over there because I'm not cleaning it till later. And once I get there, I'm going to be like, oh my God, how did I ignore this for the past few weeks, right? And I think when you're looking at just the very details of your face, you can do that too. And the thing is no one is looking at you in that close mirror that you're doing all these things in.
Yeah.
And it's like if it's something somebody wants, like if people, I don't wear makeup because I'm lazy. It's not like some sort of like political statement or anything like that. And where we're going, for a conference, they're going to do headshots. They're like, okay, pack your makeup. And I'm like, dude, I'll bring some lotion. I'll exfoliate the night before. We'll be fine. And then if I hate it, I'll just touch it up. I usually don't touch anything up, but I had someone do a headshot and like they put makeup on me, like in post, and I was like, no, you got to take all that off.
Yeah.
Maybe I'd look better with rosier cheeks, but this is what I have, and this is what I think.
Yeah, I can't wait to have you on our podcast that Lauren and I are doing because when I was younger, I wouldn't there's a point in my life when I wouldn't leave my house without putting some like mascara on, but I stopped wearing makeup. Like occasionally I will, if I'm going to be speaking in front of an audience, I might put on a little mascara or something, but day to day, no, I don't. And I get part of it is lazy, but part of it is, I think that it's self-acceptance, all the things we're talking about, not trying to be this perfect vision that we think we need to be. It's that perfection thing, right? And I think I think that could be coming with aging well, just becoming more confident, Uh-oh, I lost you.
I love
there you are.
that you're talking about, coming into yourself, being comfortable with yourself. And I think a lot of it's that when I was 16, you guys would not even recognize me. I was so prissy, had all the makeup. I lived in like the country and I wouldn't go get the mail unless my makeup was completely done.
Oh yeah, Southern women, right?
So, I mean, for those who are just like, she's just one of those feminist lesbian people. I don't need to. No, I did the whole thing. And the thing is it didn't really make me feel better. It didn't make me feel better. It just was another thing that I had to do. Now, I will also say if it makes you feel better, that's a whole different, that's how you will make your decisions. And I agree with Lisa. And I think it's very interesting because this is not where I thought this conversation was going, which is
Me
how
neither,
all of
I
it
know.
does. I love it. I love it though, because so I think it's all about this danger of trying to be perfect and trying to like show the world your best and most perfect self, and not stumbling and not having a big zit, because everybody's going to get a zit at one point or
Well, I mean,
another.
I think what we're talking about is I think that we all share, like we're all so much more alike than we think. And I think we all struggle with these things, and it's so important to talk about them. And I know, I spent a long time trying to accept these things about myself, and work on myself to feel comfortable in my own skin. And I think I want to, part of what I is really important to me is to help other people to be comfortable in their own skin and not have to go through this like, you know, 20-year journey or 40-year journey, like just to help, especially, women, that we don't have to be that thing we think we need to be, and I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I think you understand.
I totally know what you're talking about. You're totally making sense.
I think that, again, I think that we're all much more alike than we think, and we think we're the only ones who are suffering from this thing, but it's a cultural thing
It
that's
is.
happening that we all are experiencing.
It's cultural, and even just like being in school, and kids getting picked on by kids one way or another, because like I was fat, then I wasn't fat. So like through high school in my 20s, I was not fat, and in fact I was pretty thin. And so I know that some of my experience then, if you're heavy during that time, it's harder because people are meaner. People are still pretty mean. And now with the internet, people think they can be mean 24 hours a day. But
And meanwhile, with the internet, they're, manipulating the way they look, right? That's,
right,
it's very dangerous for adolescent girls. There's been a lot written about that in recent years, how, social media has impacted young women because, you're not, they're all manipulating, making their lips bigger, their waist smaller, and then all of a sudden they feel like they need to look a certain way. But that's a whole other conversation. Oh
but
my gosh, we're going to go down a rabbit hole here.
that's the way it should. And so because I do have to end at 2:30 today because my friend
Okay.
Faith is coming to walk with me. But we'll pivot a little bit. So I think this same attitude though does get internalized, and it's like this little ugly bubble inside of you that comes out in different ways. And one of the ways that I talk about perfection, and I see it happening as we talk about McDougall, I think it was when I was talking to Dr. Staff last week and we were talking about water fasting. There was a side conversation about how rolled oats are horrible. And I'm like, I don't know where this conversation came from. I think we were talking breakfast or something. And then it was this whole long thing. It's almost as bad as flour. And it's, Chef AJ
Wait,
says,
who said that?
some person who was watching, who may be watching
Oh,
now. And
okay.
if I took it out of context and you want to explain it to me, if I just made these assumptions, email me at kathyhester@gmail.com and I will listen and I will understand better. But that's kind of what
Oh, is
I
that
got.
because, yeah, I'm curious. Is that because it's not like an oat groat?
Yep, because it's not a whole enough food.
Oh, got it, got it.
And I have an issue with that. Now, there are different people that their bodies do better with different things. And if you are a person who feels better after you eat oat groats versus rolled oats versus steel cut oats, that's your business. And I support you in it wholeheartedly. What I still would not support, and I drew some real clear community boundaries. I'm like, I'm sorry, Dr. Steph, I'm gonna have to stop you for a minute. And I'm like, what's okay to say is that my body loves oat groats. What's not okay to say to someone else when they're talking about eating steel cut oats or I made rolled oats is that that's almost like eating flour because it's not the
And
same.
yeah, this is really important. It's so important. And I'm so glad you brought this up, because if you're someone who's been driving through McDonald's and getting the McMuffin breakfast sandwich and you switch to rolled oats, is that bad? You know? No.
No, no, never. And the thing is,
Yeah.
and what happens, because with Stacy, like we went on vacation, we came back, and I didn't lose any weight. I didn't really gain any weight, but I didn't lose any weight, and I was perfectly happy with that.
Sure.
Right. And so, because that's part of my conversation right now, I'm not saying that should be part of everyone's conversation. And so one of the things that kind of went on from that is just seeing more people like, well, how much weight did you lose? Someone else asked me, and I felt real prickly about it. And that was like,
Yeah, yeah.
oh, wait a minute, okay, this isn't about them. This is about me. Maybe I got to think how I feel about this and make these decisions. But like what she was really happy about is that we knew the choices we made that were treaty, we made them intentionally. I intentionally had a vegan, gluten-free lavender lemon muffin with my Earl Grey tea with chocolate coconut foam, and it was delightful.
Yum.
And it was perfect. And so because I was in Sacramento, I was able to eat so many oil-free meals for our 90%. We did great. We didn't go past 5 to 10% of oil,
Yeah.
which is what we're looking to do. That's our guidelines.
Right.
Your guidelines could be different. But what we ended up talking about, because I'm seeing it in the lives and she sees it a lot, is then people get just real black and white thinking, good or bad. Okay, so oat groats are whole and they're good, therefore rolled oats must be bad. And that's not the case. And I also wanted to explain, and we have people who are on a standard American diet in here that want to eat more vegetables. And we're happy to have them as part of our community. They don't talk about meat. We don't need to know, right? Same thing. If you're whole food, plant-based, no oil, you're welcome. Vegan, you're welcome. If you're
Absolutely.
sophist-free, you're still welcome. And I will still make
Yeah.
any recipe suggestions for the whole spectrum.
Yeah.
But what happens is someone gets really excited. And I saw this happen in the program too a couple of times, because they're like, well, my family is really sick and I'm doing better, so I want to share this great information with them.
Right.
Right? And it's very evangelical.
Yeah, we need to stop looking at things as good and bad. I think that's part of it. And because it becomes like this self-punishing thing. Like, was that muffin you ate bad? No, it was not. I just wrote a blog post, and I actually posted it on my website about oil, because we all know that oil is calorie dense and it's a processed food, and it's important to be aware of that. And for the whole food, plant-based, no oil community, I totally, I teach no oil cooking. But what I say in my blog post is that if you're somebody who has been eating the standard American diet, that's not necessarily going to be the first thing you're going to look at. If you go to a restaurant and you get a meat-free meal that's, vegetable-centered, you're doing great. And then eventually, some people can stop all of it at once, like we talked about earlier. But if you're making incremental changes, that's not going to be the easiest one to do. It's going to be easier to get a meal where you replace the meat at an Asian restaurant with tofu than it is to get oil-free. So we really have to start where we are, and we have to not look at things as good and bad, black and white. We're all on this journey, and I'm a big fan, for most people, I think it probably works better to, make those small changes and it's habit changing. I'm a big fan of James Clear, now I'm forgetting his name, James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, because, you change one habit at a time. And when it becomes, easy to have the oats for breakfast or the bean burrito for lunch, then you look at the next thing. Once that's easy, when you don't have to think about it anymore, and then you switch another thing, and I think that's important to remember, that you don't have to you haven't failed if you don't go all in at once.
I love that. And so I'm going to give you a couple of comments too. Justine says, I've been listening while making my salad. Love this conversation. Of course you do, because Lisa's here.
And it's Kathy, and you're the best.
And Mona
I
said,
love talking to you because you're so I mean, you're just so real, and that you're so open and vulnerable in sharing these things. And I know that's why everyone loves you, and it's why I love you.
Oh, you're so
I just
sweet.
want to say
Well, the thing is you can pretend or you can just be yourself, and it's a lot easier to be yourself anyhow. And you know what? People are going to be crappy if I tell people the truth or if I don't.
yeah.
You know, and Mary
Yeah.
said, I never saw myself as overweight until one of my dad's friends wanted to put me on the egg and grapefruit diet. I was 16.
Oh, yeah.
And Electric said,
And
I've
at
always,
16,
at 16.
that's a like really impressionable thing for a 16-year-old girl to hear. I
Yeah.
mean, that takes some work to overcome those things that happen to us. Go ahead.
It's crazy. Electric says, I've always been confident with how I look. I sport a DIY buzz cut and don't wear makeup. My skin routine is a bar real soap, and we are thrilled to be friends with you. And Apple says, for
Aw.
me, it's not so much about confidence, it's just that I plain don't care what people think about me. And I think I'm getting more in that camp.
God bless you. A goddess bless you, I should say.
Yeah, and I think that's the we get to a certain point and then we can kind of open up. Like, I'm 58 and a half. Evidently, this is the time of great learning. So those of you who are to come here later, this seems to be a magic time where I realize boundaries are real. It's okay to state these things that I want to have happen. I've always been great with manifesting things. And so it's just, you just have to see what's going on with you. And I think when we're looking at this, it's so much easier to see, like, oh, someone telling me I need to do X, Y, or Z doesn't mean that I'm bad. It just means sometimes that they're wrong. Like, a health issue is different in that, yes, you have to make some kinds of changes. If you have type 2 diabetes, if you have fatty liver, there are other conditions that I'm not as familiar with that losing anywhere from 10, 15, 20% of your body weight if you're overweight can be huge.
Yes.
And
Yeah, but you said something that I want to bring up a point, is that you said that people telling you what to do is not going to work for you. We have to find the intrinsic motivation. And that's another conversation. But our instinct when someone's telling us what to do is to not do it. I'm just putting that out there.
Well, and I do think that, especially if you're being kind of preachy about it. So, like,
Right.
if I come to my friends and I go, oh, well, your tests were like this. Well, Cheryl cleared up her diabetes. Then we all sound like, door-to-door salesmen. We don't mean to. We're excited.
I've been that person plenty.
Right, and I think it's not helpful. It's just like I always
Yeah.
say to people, because if I say I have 2 apples, do you want the vegan apple or do you want the regular apple? Normal people are not going to pick the vegan apple, even though they're
Right.
both vegan, right?
Exactly.
And it's because I always say there's 4 mean vegans, but they make a schedule so someone says something mean at all times of all the day, so no hours
Right.
are missed. And I think sometimes with whole food plant-based, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I don't know if you can hear that. There's a very loud motorcycle going by.
Oh, that's okay. I heard that.
So, what was I even going to say? Oh, it just, so there's kind of this negative taste in people's mouths about vegan because they're like, the whole thing, do you know anyone who's vegan? They'll tell you. Right?
Yeah. Well, and also there are a lot of vegans who shame you if you're not 100% vegan. And that's, everybody, again, is on a different path. And some people are coming to it and they stopped eating red meat first and then they stopped eating poultry. Everyone's on a different journey, but we have to be accepting of that.
And it's true. And I think the whole thing about telling people what to do or not, like, and I've talked too about, I've been offended because literally I have had someone Facebook message me, I'm scared to make your recipes because you're fat and I don't want to be fat. And I'm like, okay. And also it's a little interesting now. And those of you who've said this, I'm not taking it wrong, but everyone's like, oh, you're McDougall now, so maybe we should do Kathy's Cooking Club. And I'm like, since 2011, I have made recipes with oil-free options, gluten-free options, soy-free options, nut-free options, all the options. So my cooking and recipe development is better than it was 10 years ago. But it's like somehow people see me as being different. No, everyone would eat at my table. You were Sophos free in 2013. I would make you a meal that would work for you. So, but
Yeah.
people kind of want to go, oh, well, and and I also noticed somebody else had said almost the same thing. So I don't know if there's like just someone going around to whole food plant-based people who are not thin saying some stuff, because that's possible too. I know Joey from Plant Dads, someone had sent him in a comment. Of course, the comments are never by real people. They're by users
No.
75, 67, or whatever.
Yeah.
So they're
Well,
not
I just
willing.
want to say that that's where we need to be careful with the whole food plant-based diet and using it like we do all this crazy diet culture that shames, makes you feel ashamed, and that's not what it's about. That's the slippery slope, It's not it shouldn't be weaponized in that way at all.
Yeah, and the thing is like you were saying earlier, people are naturally of different sizes. I am not looking to get down to a size 4. I was a size 4 at one point in my life.
When you
And
were
that's
16?
yeah, probably through when I was like 19. But I also had Graves' disease. I got diagnosed at 19. So literally at 19, I went to the doctor because I couldn't sleep because my heart was racing. And I was on a bunch of pills. Then that
Yeah.
didn't work, and I drank radioactive iodine. And then it's
Yeah.
been a little bit of a steady go of
Yeah.
things. And I used to
Yeah.
eat so much food when I had Graves' disease. Like, you
Yeah.
people with the volume eating have no idea. So, like, so much food, because if I didn't eat for a day, I would lose 3 to 4 pounds because
Yeah.
my metabolism was so broken.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing we don't know. We don't know what's going on with anyone, whether they're skinny, fat, black, white. It's like everyone's got, like, it's so easy to judge people. And we really need to step back and know that we're all sharing very similar struggles. People wouldn't have known you were going through that, right? Because you're not out there, you're not wearing a t-shirt that says I've got Graves'
Right?
disease.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I just want to say, I am going to post my blog post about the BMI, and we'll have a conversation about that. But, when I was working for Whole Foods, excuse me, we automatically got a 20% discount. But they had this incentive program, they probably still have it, that they did these biometric screenings that measured your BMI, your cholesterol, and what was the other one? Blood pressure.
Uh-oh, I think you're stuck, Lisa. So hopefully she'll be coming back soon while we're waiting, because I think it's just the internet's going in and out for her a little bit. I think I'm gonna just go ahead and close it. She'll come back in a second. There we go. Oop. Well, she was in for like a half a second. Okay, she'll be back. So let's talk about some of the comments. Video 1000 Nights is saying, have you ever used Carolina Reaper peppers? No. Cheryl cannot take black pepper, and she can have very few spicy things. They're really spicy and they can hurt you. So they're pretty intense peppers. And Sandra says, I want to repeat this to Lisa too when she comes back on. I'm 62 years old. At the age of 60, I went to a new young woman gynecologist for a checkup. When they saw my stomach, they actually yelled, "Who did this to you?" Oh, good, you're back. I knew you'd be back.
Oh, yeah, I lost you.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, but I think we're good now. So
Okay.
what I just said, I think you weren't going to want to respond to this too. So Sandra is 62. At the age of 60, she went to a new gynecologist, a woman. When they saw her stomach, they actually yelled, "Who did this to you?" Which is despicable.
The gynecologist office said that to her?
I remember when I lived in New Orleans, I went to a gynecologist, and I have a stomach. I have, what is it? Fupa? Like the thing that comes over, right? It's not a muffin top. It's like a muffin top plus. And she just kind of took something and lifted it up and gave me this weird look. And I will never forget that moment. And I'm good at compartmentalizing, so I could compartmentalize that and then just get out of there. I've dealt with enough trauma in my life that's not, but
Yeah.
a professional shouldn't be
There's
doing
a way
things
to
like that.
address concern. If you're a doctor and you're concerned about someone's belly, there's a way to address that in a much better and more professional way. If you have an actual concern about their health.
Right, and I think it goes to a thing that we have to kind of remember too, that doctors are just people who learn some stuff we didn't learn. And I don't mean to disrespect either the plant-based doctors that I like, or even the doctors that maybe I've chosen not to see anymore. But they're still just people with opinions that vote for people that we vote for or we don't vote for, who choose to eat that steak or choose not to eat that steak. They are just people with information. And as we're going along, so like my normal general practitioner, after kind of seeing Dr. Lim and Dr. McDougall and seeing her, and I love her, but her workload is not the kind where she's going to go and be Dr. Greger reading all the studies all day long, because she can't even take patients who are trying to get in to see her because she is packed. So it could be that where she wants to know information. If I run across something, I send it to her because she wants to know, to the point that you may be at a doctor that thinks it's all just crazy talk. And that really, there are doctors out there who just think, okay, you're fat, let's talk about weight loss surgery. That happened to Steve Sando from Rancho Gordo. We were talking. He went to a new doctor. Before he could get off the scale,
First of all, I love him and I love his beans.
Right? He's my secret crush. Or my not so secret crush.
I love him.
But he was saying, so he just walked off, and I think it was like the physician's assistant or something, before he could even walk him to the room, was talking about, well, we should probably talk about having, weight loss surgery. And he's like, how about we look at my labs first?
Wow, the doctor
Right?
said that? Wow.
Yeah, and so I think the thing is we
Without
have to,
labs.
right? We have to go ahead and go, this is a person, and does this person's personality and some of the things they think work with us or don't? Now, it's different if someone says, okay, Kathy, you're obese and you really need to lose 15% of your body fat so that this can heal, right?
Yes.
So some of those things could be offensive and could make me feel kinds of ways.
Yeah.
But those are things that are all just facts. It's not.
Yeah. Well, they're trained a certain way, and, they learn by the book. That's why, the BMI has been sort of the standard for doctors for, a century or more. And I know that waist circumference is an indicator of heart disease, so that's something they go by. So this is the way they're trained, but bedside manner is very important. So there are ways to have these discussions without making someone feel bad.
Right, and I think some of it's a two path thing. One is us hearing something and turning it bad, because I'm queen of that. You can say something that's just moderately not offensive, and I will somehow internalize that about how I'm a bad person because of X. So as you get older, you learn, oh wait, that's my crazy. That's not their crazy. But that doesn't mean they don't have any crazy. So if someone comes, like if a doctor said to me, oh, you'd be so much prettier if you lost 20 pounds, I got a lot to say about that.
Oh, yeah,
Right?
that's a no, that's not a territory they should be going into at all.
Right. And it's okay for them to, because I'm not skinny. I've lost a good amount of weight. I've lost a couple of sizes. I'm feeling better. My numbers are better. And for me, looking at some of these facts really helps. And also with me, for right now, I don't know how long this will continue because I am kind of disordered and I don't know if I'm gaining weight or not gaining weight
Right,
sometimes.
right.
So weighing every day is helpful to me. If
Yeah,
weighing every
definitely.
day makes you get really weird and it's like you want that Botox right in there because that's a little too skinny or this is a little too that or oh, if only this was, don't do
Yeah,
it, right? So,
yeah.
and
Yeah, if it becomes an unhealthy obsession, then yeah, don't.
right.
Yeah.
And so I
But
try
there's
to be
nothing
okay.
wrong with, if you've got a goal, there's nothing wrong with having a way to monitor if you're meeting that goal, but, everyone's going to be doing it a little differently.
And I feel like for me right now too, I'm just starting to relearn when I'm really hungry instead of ignoring it. And I think I'm also just kind of trying to relearn, okay, the scale said I gained weight. Does my body feel like I gained weight? And I'm
Yeah,
trying to get to this point. So like Cheryl and I, and if we gain weight when we didn't think we were going to gain weight, it bothers us and we talk about it and we get to the other side of that.
right,
And
yeah,
but like for me in general, it's just data that we're using to try and figure things out. But
yeah. Well, and I think it's really important, like both of you have a very powerful reason why you're doing it, and you've both experienced the benefit of it. So
yes.
you've got some metrics that are important.
And I think it's been very helpful for us because we run things back and forth on each other and we know where our weak points are and things like that. So that's very helpful. And I think that's why a lot of people are like, well, I don't have the money to do the McDougall program. And it is expensive. But you might have the money to work with a health coach like Lisa, right? Even if it's not as much as often as you want, you can find someone. There are groups that you can find too. Just be careful because if you're in a Facebook group, someone's going to come out with all the things you can't have that really aren't
Yeah.
necessarily the case for everyone, right?
Well, you're in a great situation because you've got the support right there with you. You guys are supporting each other, and that's extremely helpful. So that's where the groups are important, to have a community that's supporting you. And you may not have that at first, and that's where you're going to struggle the most. And you have to, and there are ways to navigate that, you know. There are ways to navigate that, which is something that as a health coach I help people do.
Okay, we've got about 13 minutes. And
13 minutes left.
something's delivering stuff out, so my dog is going to go crazy in a minute.
My dogs are, yeah, they're going crazy. So we both have crazy dogs right now. It's
Woo!
okay.
So if someone was here and wanting, let me do this. Oh, that. I closed my eyes for a second and I looked and saw him walking behind you. I thought someone walked behind me.
Yeah,
And I was
also
like,
activity
who
in my
just
house
came? Because
now.
there is a door over here. And I'm like, but they would have to, it would not be good. Okay, so, and Justine's saying, even if your GP is good, they only give you about 10 to 15 minutes. And, and that's true too. And I think
Yes.
having someone that you can talk to, having, if, Lisa, who are the people that maybe you're looking to work with or you'd like to work with, or do you want to talk a little bit about what would it look like to work with Lisa Rice to help me with my eating
Well,
journey?
you don't have to be vegan or whole food plant-based to benefit from a health coach. I want to say that. You start wherever you are on your journey, and we look at what you want for yourself, what your goals are. I'm not going to tell anybody what to do. I support people in the goals that they've got for themselves, and sometimes they don't know what that is, and that's some of the work that we do. But the process, part of the process is discovery, a lot of the process. And we find ways that, everybody's individual. So I'm not going to tell you to do this certain thing, like do the McDougall program, and then I've got somebody else and I'm like, oh, it really worked for Kathy, so you should do that. That's not how it works. We're going to find out what's going on with that person, what their life is like, what they want from themselves, what their goals are, and work with what they've got. I mean, honestly, that's how everybody has to do it, really, because it's more realistic and more doable.
Right. Well, and I would even go beyond saying more realistic and more doable, in that it's actually good for the person. And because the thing is, I became vegetarian in 1983. I'm that old, people. So, and that was a big deal then. And now being vegetarian is like, why aren't you vegan? If you're vegan, why aren't you whole food plant-based? We're all wanting to graduate just a mystical, I have achieved and now I am one with all kind of thing. And these eating is not a step process that's going to do that. And I love that what you're saying, that I love it because I think it's important that we as people meet each other where we are.
And
like,
it's not just the food too. I want to say that it's not just about the food. So we look at everything, and if you come to me and you're like, I want to go whole food, plant-based, oil-free, I want to start today and I'm ready, I can give you I can support you in that too. But we might discover along the way that's not really what it is that you might discover it's not what you want to do, or you might discover it is. Like it really is based upon the individual, and that's part of the process.
And I can only imagine, like, to me, I think you would be a magical health coach. So, because I just like you so much, like I feel like your mind and your values are so in align with what I feel. And I think that that's something important for everyone to look at. And if you're looking for a health coach or a doctor or an eating plan, you can look around. And you can interview people and see how it goes. Like when I met with Dr. Bean the first time, I was like, okay, look, here's some things, and I need to know that you're not going to do these three things. And she's like, and we decided to go to a place that was healthy at any weight. And what that means is not that you can be sick and type 2 diabetes and have all these other things and no one's going to bother you. What it means is you don't weigh, you do labs. And I'm not saying one way is better than the other. I'm not a doctor. However, you can find people that do things in different ways, is what I want to say.
Well, I have a lot of information and I have a lot of knowledge, but I'm only how I work is that I'm not going to throw that at you unless that's what you're looking for and what you want. It's like really, again, it gets back to the individual, I can help you put a meal plan together. I can help you, but mainly it's about finding your goals, setting your goals, and helping you get from point A to point B. It's as easy as that. I should probably come up with a better spiel as a health coach.
I'll help you, but I was going to say, what would be like the top 2 to 3 general things people come to you for? Would it be like, I have type 2 diabetes and I need to figure this out? Like, what are a couple of things that you've dealt with?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I've worked with a lot of people with type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol, high blood pressures. Very commonly people want to get that under control. People who are trying to implement certain things in their lives, like activity, exercise. I'd say mostly I'm working with people who want to make dietary changes because they know they need to for their health reasons.
But you do talk some about movement or how that can work in with things.
Yeah, we look at stress. Oftentimes people discover during the process of working together that they need to address some other lifestyle change in order to make their dietary change successful. That happens a lot, because if you're not sleeping well, if you're not getting enough sleep, you're not going to be making the right choices during the day when you eat. If your stress is really high, there's so many different factors. And so, oftentimes we'll be working on that while we're working on the dietary changes because we know that will help you be more successful.
That totally makes sense because I feel, well, I didn't get a lot of sleep last week, and I was feeling a lot more out of it. Some things were harder, and
Yeah, you're not going to want to go to the gym if you haven't been sleeping well or whatever it is you like to do for exercise. You're not going to want to get in the kitchen and make a, extravagant meal. You're not going to have the energy. Plus, the way your cortisol is affected, and you're going to be craving certain foods because your body's in survival mode. So it's going to want more calorie dense food. You're going to want the stuff that know isn't going to be serving your health goals. It's a very intricate pattern of things that are happening with us when we are trying to make health changes.
I like that we're thinking about all this, and I know we're talking about a lot of this in very general terms now, but in months to come, we can break down some of these topics. But I wanted to just kind of get you to come out of your health coach shell on here because you've just been cooking, and you cook amazing, and you're an amazing instructor and things like that. But I just think that there are a lot of people that can really benefit from your help. And I really like how genuine and open you are and thoughtful. So I think.
Thank you. I love to help people, I really know that everybody can achieve what they want to achieve. And I'm very gentle about that. And you don't have to be on any kind of weekly call. It's, people do really well with just a monthly meeting. I email in between, there's always support when you're health coaching, if we need to email or if we need to hop on the phone. So, and we,
lovely.
Yeah, we could do, you could do, I actually every week oftentimes isn't the best way because it doesn't really give you enough time to work on the things we're trying to work on together. So I'd say every 2 weeks or once a month is great for most people.
Oh, that's really interesting. And and that also makes it a little more obtainable and affordable, and people can kind of follow through and do things, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, clearly I'm not trying to get rich, or I'd be saying, you got to do every week.
But that just shows your commitment to helping people versus just, sometimes people mistakenly think every time someone gets money for their services, that somehow that is not right. I've had that too. How dare you charge for your book? Oh, perhaps it's all the groceries I use to make those recipes. We gotta make a living. Right, and perhaps you would like me to keep a house so that I have a kitchen and I can make some more things. But I think sometimes people get real negative, whereas no one worries that the receptionist at their doctor got paid. It's a very interesting thing.
That's a great point. Yeah,
and so I think it's good. It's nice to have this kind of energetic exchange and how you can do it. And but
I'll definitely. I mean, part of having a health coach is the accountability. For sure. Anyone can do this on their own, but having the accountability definitely is helpful.
And one thing, and you may want to address this. I know and we can also push this off. Sandra was saying, negative messaging comes from all sides. I won't use any names. However, one of the plant-based doctors stated on a show that she watches that fat vegans are disgusting. And again, doctors are just human beings. And human beings are not all right, kind, or thoughtful.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people think that they're on the internet, but they think they're in a private room. They think that they're preaching to the choir. And they're not really
that's really insensitive if they actually said that, and it's really horrible, and they shouldn't be doing what they're doing, in my opinion. You don't say that to someone. You don't say that to anyone, especially publicly, even if you feel that way.
I do agree.
And there's a backlash. There's a big backlash against those doctors, by the way. I've seen it. There are a lot of vegan RDs and nutritionists out there who are, railing against that. So,
Well, I think you and I get along so well because we have a very moderate view of things, and we're not all, again, I think that statement that got said is one of the dangers of perfection. Once you decide there's this obtainable perfectionist thing, then that means everything that doesn't meet that is bad and demonized, and harsh words are used. But you know what? Maybe that fat person you saw just lost 100 pounds.
right,
And has
exactly.
been
Well, and
working
here's the
really
other thing.
hard.
I mean, I am coming to this. I started off when I went plant-based, I had amazing health transformation, right? And then I became an ethical vegan. There are lots of vegans out there who are doing it for ethical veganism. They're not doing it for health reasons. So, no one should be shamed for anything ever, but that especially, I think a lot of the backlash is having to do with that, because a lot of the vegan, RDs and nutritionists are, they're very conscious of making it anything that's going to make it more difficult for anyone to go vegan, so they're, like, don't tell somebody not to eat the Beyond Burger because it's unhealthy. Because if someone's making that switch from a beef burger to a Beyond Burger, that's a step in the right direction, right? So that's we have to be careful of that.
And I agree. And I think I agree with that too. And I'm like, Cheryl went vegan because of Beyond Meat. And
Yeah,
so
same with my husband.
I have very
Yeah.
clear things that Beyond Meat may not be for you, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't exist. It means it's a choice you're going to say no to. And that's
Absolutely.
wonderful. We have choices, and everything. And again, it goes back to that demonizing, because like I do see that, some of the whole food plant-based doctors in the past kind of call out the vegan, or the pudding vegan in the UK, which means chunky girls like me. But here's the thing. You guys know that I'm on a weight loss journey at this point. Someone could see me today who didn't know me at all and be like, she's fat, that's disgusting, and not know. And like, I've met other people who are on whole food plant-based journeys that are my size or even heavier. And some of them have lost a lot of weight. They are on a journey. And again, I'm not saying that that's good or bad, but I think people need to be not reprimanded, but aware that, you're not 300 or 400 pounds one day and then you eat whole food plant-based and then the next day you're exactly at the right BMI. There's a process that goes on, and I think that we all need to be, when probably that doctor, I don't know who it was either, has tons of people in that process and doesn't think about them that way.
Well, and also we have to be careful because there are a lot of people out there with eating disorders, and we don't want them to be using a whole food plant-based diet to justify that either, So it's both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, and I think it's really, people are saying that's sad coming from a health perspective. And Justine said, does she coach people who aren't plant-based? And that is yes, we got
Yes.
that. And then Video 1000, you've been asking a lot of off-topic questions today. But hypothetically, if in Sacramento you stopped by McDonald's for the bathroom and saw a known vegan eating a cheeseburger, milkshake, and fries, would you say hi or act like you didn't see them? A, I'd probably have to go to the bathroom, so I wasn't paying attention to anybody. That is what truly would happen. But like, if I saw someone who was supposed to be a known vegan or a known full food, that's their business. It doesn't affect me and my health goals and what I work with my health coach. And kind of like in the beginning, sometimes you have to stay in your lane. And if my lane right now is whole food, plant-based, no oil, I don't care if Lisa Rice ate some vegan cheese on her Beyond Burger yesterday, which she probably didn't have. But I mean, I could care less. It would not lessen how I feel about Lisa.
Yeah.
It would not let me not recommend her as a health coach. So I think that what's more important over everything is realizing that we're making these decisions for us individually. Like with Cheryl, sometimes there's decisions being made for both of us because we're in a household. But
Sure.
one of the things I've been doing is making rice and some other things. So if she's hungry before me, she can eat. If I'm hungry before her, I can
Absolutely.
eat. So again, even within us doing this together, we have these separate individual decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And Cheryl's in the back. She said, and for years and years, I never said anything about what she was eating. Because the thing is me berating her is not going to change anything. And she didn't become vegan because of me. She became vegan because of a conversation she had with Joshua Johnny. And like, I've had so many people come up to me after that and go, oh, you finally got her to go vegan. I didn't
Yeah.
get anybody to do
You know,
anything.
it's the same with David, my husband. It's like he over time discovered it for himself, but initially when we went out, he would order steak, you know?
Right.
So,
And I mean,
but now he doesn't want it anymore, but he found that out on his own.
right. And it is an individual thing. And I feel incredibly lucky because Cheryl and I have had some health journeys before. And if we're not on the same page, it's easier to sabotage each other inadvertently. No one's
Yeah.
trying to sabotage anyone. But I think,
Yeah.
and like when you're talking about perfection and with us talking about all the things we did today, for me, and I'd love you to sum this up, but for me, the one message I want you to take is it's not about anybody else but you.
Absolutely.
You have to go in your time, the way you can do it, little by little, like what Lisa was saying. And you know what? You may be internally judging some people. And that's just a normal human thing. Keep it internal. For that, when it has to do with other people, what was it?
Well, and
You
also
don't have
remember,
something
and
nice to
also,
say. Don't say anything at all.
I agree with that 110%. And also think about why it's important to you. You know, what values you're meeting for yourself of why you're doing it and, you know, why? Why are you doing it? You know, uncover that.
And I think that's important. That's something I felt too. Like even if you're stopping eating meat because you don't want to do any harm, because of environmental reasons, because of health reasons, it doesn't matter except to you.
Absolutely. It needs to be intrinsic and something that you want to do for your reason, not because what someone else is telling you to do. We grew up with teachers telling us what to do, our parents telling us what to do, and it takes a while to figure out what we really want for ourselves and what we need for ourselves, to really, really listen.
And once you've got that, it makes it easier to make your daily decisions. It doesn't mean you won't struggle. Doesn't mean you might want, that Beyond Burger sounds really good. And then you go back, well, I always kind of start at the top. Can I have this? Why do I not want to have this? How do I feel about that? And then get to, does it meet my goals for the day? And sometimes it might be, for us, like we're going to decide at some point if we're going to the vegan Indian buffet tonight. We ate out already this week because of not poor planning. And so we have to decide to do that. And I will literally go through these steps and we will decide that way together about what's
Well,
going
and if you've
on.
had a Beyond Burger, you haven't failed. And if you've had a McDonald's burger, you can always make your next meal whole food plant-based, and you're still on the path. Like, there are going to be setbacks. People are going to have setbacks on their goals. Just make your next choice the choice that aligns with your goals and your values.
Right. And it's a lot about just picking yourself up. Like one of the things I like about Howard Jacobson's coaching style is he's really good he teaches you about what to do when you fail, because you're going to fail at some point. And that doesn't mean you're never going to lose X pounds or you're never going to get off of insulin. What it means is you're going to make a decision that didn't align with those goals. And so what happens with a lot of people, and like I was surprised Stacy wasn't like, well, and then you had a muffin the second day, because I did. Because it was glorious and I was alone and I got to isolate and be in the coffee shop. But I was kind of expecting, well, the first one was okay, but maybe the second one wasn't. And what she said to me is, I feel like you're making these decisions very consciously, and know what you're getting into. And I'm very happy that you're not falling into black and white thinking.
Great. Yes, exactly. It's a journey.
And so, anything else you would like to leave these lovely people with today before we go out and live our best lives?
Well, it's so hard when I talk to you because there's so many things we could dive into and go down so many rabbit holes. But no, I think everything you just said is I absolutely agree with, and that's that. I just want to help people realize that too.
Yeah. No, and just, I think if one thing that Lisa could teach all of us is to be kinder, to be more mindful, and really look a little bit within. But also, I think it's easy for us to like see something we don't like in ourselves and lash out when we see it at someone else. And that's taken me a long time to understand. And so that's why I said, if you're saying something kind of negative or being judgy about somebody, keep it inside. Because if you get a couple days later when you say it, you're going to be like, oh, if someone said that to me, I would cry.
I like to, when I'm coaching, first of all, self-empathy is really important, right? But also, I like to celebrate the wins. We don't focus on the backward steps. We look at what's working and using the tools to keep making things work for you, and you'd be surprised how well you are actually doing most of the time, but you're only focusing on where you're not meeting the goal.
Okay, sorry. I was asking Cheryl, I'm like, is Max downstairs? Because my friend is probably coming up anytime. And,
Oh, yeah.
and a door
I know, we're
knock
losing
means
track
Max
of time
goes,
here.
save the mommy mode. But it was, as always, a pleasure. I just feel like
my
I could just
gosh.
spend hours and hours and weeks with you. Ooh, we need to go on a vacation.
We do. Let's do it.
Let's figure that out. Okay, I'm putting that out to the universe. Maybe we could do something where we cook and you coach or something like that.
Yeah, we have like a fun retreat where we invite people who are watching to join us and we all do it together.
That could be cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I just love you so much.
Oh.
You are just so, I don't know, my heart feels full whenever I talk to you.
Well,
So,
and I just look forward to these so much and getting to talk to you. And like my only regret in Sacramento is like I didn't have a whole day just with you.
I know, same. I should have booked a hotel and stayed there overnight so that we'd have some time. But then you got pulled into that lunch, so that wouldn't have happened anyway. And it was
But it was really fun. But there's going to be way more Lisa coming on, and hopefully you could come on. I think I have you scheduled for the 4th week in October, but you let me know if that doesn't work. You guys, if you have some questions, put them on YouTube. Email me at Kathy
And
Husker.
Also, feel free to email me, lisa@kitchenplantastic.com. I'm happy to answer questions. I'm happy to hop on the phone. I'm available.
Okay, so, and she's like the nicest ever. So, yeah. Well, you guys have a great day. Be kind to yourselves, okay? You can do it.
Please.
And give yourself a little wiggle room to do really great things, because if you don't give yourself any wiggle room, you can't do really great things. All right, I'll talk to you guys real soon.
Bye, everyone. This was wonderful. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.